agreements. This is within the framework of the OSCE. But of course, all allies are taking part in these agreements in different ways. We have had a special focus on risks connected to increased air activity. Russia has increased its air activity by around 50%. That's also one of the reasons why we have increased air policing from the NATO side. We're intercepting many more Russian flights now than just a few years ago. And the European Aviation Security Agency, I think that's the correct name, at least the European agency, provided a report recently addressing the challenges related to the increased air activity, military air activity, and also the large number of flights of planes without the transponders. And there actually NATO was commended for the way we are doing and conducting our military flights. And it was stated that military flights without transponders poses a risk to civilian air traffic. So to turn on transponders and to do military flights in due regard to civilian air traffic is also something which can be done immediately. And it will, of course, increase transparency, predictability, and reduce the risk for international civilian air traffic.
Secretary General, you painted a very stark picture of Russia's increasingly aggressive posture, the question of the nuclear issue. At last September's Newport summit, there was a series of actions that NATO has taken, Readiness Action Plan, you mentioned the Very High Readiness Task Force, and a variety of other issues. As we look forward to next year's Warsaw Summit in July, you mentioned we're in this for the long haul. Do you see that summit as one that just checks the implementation of what happened at Newport, or do you see it moving into the long haul, a long-term strategic posture for NATO? We hosted Polish Defense Minister Szymoniak here last week, and he argued for a Warsaw Initiative for strategic adaptation, a long-term permanent presence in NATO's east. What are your thoughts as you look towards a year in advance of the next NATO summit?
So we are facing a fundamentally changed security environment, and therefore we have to adapt to this fundamentally new environment. And therefore the adaptation has to also be big and fundamental. And therefore I very much believe that what we are going to do in Warsaw is to chart a way forward in this adaptation of NATO, both when it comes to military adaptation, political adaptation, and institutional adaptation. And that's partly about increasing our collective defense. We are already doing that. We have to do more. But also, of course, addressing other elements, for instance, cyber, the importance of intelligence, hybrid warfare, and many other elements where we have to do more and develop new capabilities and adapt. Then I will add that in addition to outlining the next phase of adaptation beyond, also after Warsaw, I think it's also important that Warsaw is a summit where we take stock of what we have done from Wales to Warsaw, because implementation is also important. I have been a politician for decades, and I'm sorry to admit, but many politicians make many decisions and adopt many plans, but they're not always as good as they should be in implementing the plans. So I think it's extremely important that we also make sure that we are implementing what we have already decided to do, about the Readiness Action Plan, about the increased preparedness of our forces, and not least about when it comes to defense investment, that we are stopping the cuts in defense investments and starting to increase defense investments as we promised in Wales.
Just a quick follow-up question on the speed of deployability. I think it was Estonian President Ilves who mentioned that there's a bit of a time gap as Russia puts forward its forces much closer to the Baltic states' borders. The Spearhead Force has a 48-hour deployment. You know, it could be something of a much faster speed, potentially, using hybrid tactics.